So, needless to say, I still have some residue from the winter retreat on the four establishments of mindfulness, particularly the mindfulness of the mind. And seeing that the Dharma can be a really powerful assessment tool when I start looking at, why do I think what I think? Why do I imagine, describe, interpret things the way that I do? That many times the Dharma in my mind is saying, okay, Semke, this thinking is very biased, it's very limited, it's very narrow, and guess who it's about? And it challenges me to open up the view that challenges the self-centered thought, assessing, what is the value of this thought? Here you have this precious human life. Do you want to spend time on it, or do you want to drop it? So the Dharma as an assessment tool helps me to look at my life and practice freshly. Is this thought going to help me practice freshly, hit the refresh button? Is it going to help me to create virtue, or am I stuck in an old rut of negative habits of thinking? So from this retreat, I'm learning to have a lot more confidence that I can pull out the Dharma as an assessment tool. And that assessing the content with the Dharma also includes memories, which can condition our minds, and then we get stuck in this really hardened kind of stuck in the past in this really painful way, and that it colors our experience with life that has nothing to do with the past. So I wanted to share how the Dharma has been so pivotal in my ability to look at my memories. And it's very interesting. I don't know, maybe this is happening for the elders in this community, but the older I get, they seem to be popping up with more frequency. Whereas remembering where I need to be at 2:30 has been falling off the plate, as you may have figured out yesterday. And that the Dharma has helped me to reframe and open up the perspective, clearing any erroneous views, these worldviews that are not lining up with the Buddhist worldview. They're still in there. And to help me care about, not so much more about myself, but make peace with the past, that by doing so makes peace with my present. If I've learned anything from the Dharma, is memories can carry a lot of baggage. And for some of them, it takes some effort to open them, to look through it, to keep what's valuable and throw the rest away, or sometimes put it down and walk away and don't even bother to look for the key. Because the Dharma really is pretty good at assessing, this is an old piece of baggage, you've been there, done that, just drop it. And so the Dharma is amazing because it gives this tool of assessment to determine what to do with the bag. Memories, they really, to me, sometimes they feel like baggage. It could be baggage from last year, something that happened between me and somebody, a situation. I'm still harboring some unfinished business, some lack of closure, some peace of mind. It could be baggage from 5 years ago, 25 years ago, 50 years ago. And the thing is about baggage that there's a lot of gray areas on how to address them. It's not like you do it this way or there's a right or wrong way to deal with the memories that come up. And the more I practice the Dharma and the older I get, the more accessible these memories are. And I want to be clear that when I die, as many of the memories that come up, I want to just see what their value is. What can I learn? Can I make peace? Can I rejoice in some of the memories that are coming up? So you might start unpacking these bags, like I have seen in my own practice, and get caught up in the content. Get kind of nostalgic. You might want to add a few more things into the bag before you stop yourself and go, not helpful, not helpful. Or you throw it away thinking, I'm done with that. Because you don't want to look at something about your own mind and your own behavior that's painful. And later on, you got to go find where you put it so you can retrieve it, open it up, and look at some of the stuff that's inside because you thought you were done with it. Some of the events or relationships from the past that need some closure, they need some compassion, or maybe we need to reassess some habit of mind or way of thinking that's coloring our present experience or perspective in some way. So there is a very particular memory that has come back in more vivid detail that I have not unpacked for decades. I think I have shared some of the unpacking previously, but not in this detail to the point that it has instilled in me such deep gratitude for the Buddhist teachings for the healing that it helped me get to, for unpacking this particular bag. And I got sort of brought back into my room from the Monday night class Zoom that we've been doing. We've been doing Open-Hearted Life, and we're at the chapters on the 7-point cause and effect. And Venerable wisely in this book just deals with the happiness of just this life. So we go through point one is seeing the interdependence of all beings, and then second to see the kindness of those who have cared for us, including our mothers, then how to repay that kindness, and then to go and extend that farther and farther and farther. And then wishing to repay that kindness, seeing these beings who have taken care of us so much in this life in beauty, with warm-hearted love, and then to extend that to all living beings. So I've heard this teaching, I don't know how many times, but there's something about what's going on right now in my practice and with this class that brought up some very, very powerful memories that I just really want to share, because there's so much closure in it. There's so much gratitude in it. So I didn't have a great relationship with my stepmom. Okay, the memory is painful. And over the decades, it's gotten really hardened. It's gotten really small. It's gotten really narrow. This is how I think my childhood, my life was, period. Objective, truth, this is it. And I suffered immensely. And I got so embedded in that memory. And I carried that. So when I heard the teachings, I always had on the 7-point cause and effect, which is this beautiful way to cultivate this beautiful mind of bodhicitta, I would get into this stubborn resistance to seeing my stepmom in any other way but the way I saw her, as this horrible, horrible person that caused all this suffering. No way was she kind. And I was convinced that this was an objective reality. So every time I heard Venerable teach this, I would go, yes, but, she did this, she did that, I suffered so much. I mean, a lot of parent-child relationships are hard, but they're not impossible. They're not impossible to heal. I just could not soften my mind and heart around her. I'd meditate on this 7-point cause and effect. I'd think about it, but I was too caught up in my own small narrative about that this was the way it was, about my suffering as a child. This memory, I believe to be objectively true, was 45 years old when I still stuck in that belief. Keep trying it, feeling the sadness at some level, not to be able to move beyond the story. Asking myself with this little bit of wisdom mind that I had gotten, how am I going to be able to see all sentient beings as my mother if I can't reconcile my relationship to the mother of this life and find some way to love? I knew in my heart that if I couldn't resolve this and reconcile this relationship, I was going to always have somewhat of an obstacle to being able to see all sentient beings as being my mom or my parent in so many lives. So one time, and this was just, from the time I moved here, I kept hearing these teachings. There was a time when Venerable was doing the mind training like Rays of the Sun and Essence of Refined Gold, somewhere in the early years. I think I was just ordained. It was still in Ananda. And I had a very clear memory of something about this relationship that I had not remembered. And there were two things that came alive for me. I think it was 2008, 2009. One of them was an image of a little girl that was on a chest of drawers in my stepmother's daughter's room. She was quite a bit older than us, and she had children. And there's a little girl that she was in a dress that was sitting on a chest of drawers, one of those pictures you take of your children at a department store somewhere. And another one was standing outside in a parking lot of a local hospital where we lived, and I was maybe 8 or 9, and I was waving to my mom up in the hospital room. She was leaning out of the window and waving to us. And I was suddenly, after that night, while Venerable was teaching this, and for the next few weeks, I was able to totally look at her life totally from her side because of these two images. And for the first time, the teaching on the kindness of Mother gave me a perspective that I had never been able to get because of this hard-heartedness and this refusal to say that it didn't exist any other way but the way that I saw it. So all the years that she had raised us, she had been experiencing incredible back pain. She had had surgery, which was why we were in the parking lot. She had had some back surgery. She was recovering, and we weren't allowed to go in as kids. This is back in the 50s, right? They didn't do a lot of things back then. And And she'd be bent over in the morning when she would be making our breakfast. She'd be saying her rosary every morning on the couch while we were doing our breakfast. And then when she'd get up, she'd have such a look of such pain and wincing. She'd be bent over. She couldn't straighten herself out. Sometimes she could hardly walk. Other times she could. She loved to dance. My dad and her would go to the Elks Club or something like that, and they would dance. But I'd see her every morning like this. She was in so much pain, and I didn't care. I just walked right by her. She was usually grumpy and volatile. She was scary. She was mean. I didn't know what was going on with her. No one talked about what happened. I just was afraid of her, and she was in pain, and I just didn't connect. I did not connect to it. What I found out a few years later that came back as a memory back in 2008, 2009, that this little girl in this chest of drawers was her first grandchild. She was 2.5 years old. Her name was Carol. And that one day, I don't know, maybe about 5 or 6 years before I was born, my stepmom and her sister were driving, and they had Carol on my stepmom's lap. Back then, you didn't have seatbelts. There was an accident. Carol went through the windshield and died on impact, and my stepmom and my sister were seriously injured. She lost her first grandchild. And what happened after thinking about this, for the weeks afterwards, I said, can you imagine not just the physical pain, but the guilt, the emotional pain that she carried about the loss of her grandchild while under her care, that she could never, ever forgive herself for? That made taking, and then she married my father a few years after that. Then she had to take care of 2 9-month-old twins and a 3-year-old who had just lost their mother. Would that be a challenge to the heart or what? What was it like to be able to marry my father and have Carol's death in the cause and conditions for what her life was like? And so after that, my heart just broke open. It was like everything came together. I got out of myself. I looked at this bigger picture of this incredible human being in my life that had my mother died when I was born. She took in 3 kids she didn't know after losing her grandchild. My heart just opened up to the love for her that I had not been able to feel for 45 years. And that by stepping back and opening my little world of all about my unhappiness, all about my suffering, all about my pain, that I was able to see her whole life and what she might possibly have been dealing with. And maybe why she was always so on edge, why she was so vigilant with us. She took so much close, vigilant care of us, almost like she didn't want us to get hurt or something. So what I do know as a result of that is that she raised 3 really good people in the middle of this great pain, which was the opening of the perspective, which is what the Dharma has helped me to see. As Venerable said this morning, so much of the influence on our minds comes from the way that people model. Our parents didn't tell us to do, they just did things. And that maybe she got up every day, she didn't say a word about the pain. She made breakfast, she was an at-home mom, so she took care of everything. Made amazing meals while my dad worked all day. Showing up modeling, she might have taught me the tenacity and the determination that I have. Jane had it. Brian has the same tenacity. I've been called tenacious. And I think it might have come from Jenny for her ability to be able to survive. So it changed everything when I turned my attention to her and I opened up my lens. Not surprising after that, and through the course of this past few weeks when we've been doing this class, is I'm starting to remember all these wonderful things about her that I was never able to see. She was an amazing cook. She sewed the most beautiful things. She was really, really funny. She loved to dance. She loved music. She paid for piano lessons for me for 10 years. That's why I can read music and sort of sing a tune. She took such good care in so many ways. And the kindness that she showed that I could not see so much then began to emerge as a kindness not just for her, but for others. Around a love that as the years go on, more memories come up. The love keeps getting deeper, more deeply felt. The bag is unpacked. After all, I thought I had unpacked it. See, I thought I'd unpacked it. I unpacked and found some real gems in it after thinking about some of the beautiful things and that this heavy load that I didn't think was mine. It was my perspective on this life story that I had told myself that wasn't true. And it helped me open my heart to not just repaying the kindness of her love, but it has made it so much easier to look at the possibility of loving other people, despite whatever baggage they carry. And so this is probably one of the most pivotal times where my confidence in the Dharma and the power of it to transform the mind and open the perspective into love and compassion really finally opened up the windows into my practice. And since then, there's been more of these memories, other memories getting healed. But this was a pivotal one that really made a huge difference and built the confidence that I have now that the Dharma is a very powerful healing mechanism. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of determination and courage, but there's nothing so old, so inherently painful that cannot be healed through the power of the Dharma. Absolutely.